Jets fans, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button down there. See it? See it? Hit that like button and make sure you click the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any of our latest videos and so we can get more great Jet fans involved with our channel. Check out our community page for all the latest. And again, we are going to start a new tradition. Let me know in the comments if you want me to keep this going every 2 weeks for mock draft Mondays. Again, my favorite time of the year. Part of the bread and butter of this channel is doing mock drafts. Now, again, I do full 7-round mock drafts after free agency. We're before the combine. I know it's exciting. I know we're going to get a clearer picture after the combine. But I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring. I thought I would give you my initial thoughts and my initial mock drafts. Now, I tend to try to follow suit with what the GM does or his history. But of course, we have a new GM. So I have to go based on what I think the values of this new coaching regime and this new front office will be. If you want to make sure that you are guaranteed a spot in the comment section that you are seen, or you have a strong opinion about your picks and you want to get it out there, make sure to use that super chat feature so you can jump right to the front of the line. And also, it makes a donation, which helps this channel continue to grow. We have a lot to talk about. The New York Jets are officially on the clock. Right now, the Jets in this 3-round mock draft format, they have the 7th overall pick, a high 2nd round, and a very late 3rd rounder. I will go through my picks, break down why I have these prospects selected, why certain prospects are not selected in that position, and also key aspects, what I think the Jets will do. I do want to start off with this, though. I don't have any trades in this one. I usually do a lot of trades, but this one I'm keeping straight and narrow. There is no trade up to get a quarterback. There is no trade up to number 1. I don't see the Jets doing that. But with that being said, I do think they will stay at 7. So the New York Jets are on the clock. And with the first pick in the 2025 draft, pick number 7, I have the New York Jets selecting Ted McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. Look, this is a player who I really love. This is arguably, in my opinion, the smoothest route runner. But here is the key with McMillan. McMillan is incredibly productive. The Jets need production. And I think a lot of the time with the Jets in the previous years, they went with the other P word, which is potential. If you look at McMillan, he, over the last 2 seasons, led FBS in combined receiving yards with over 2,700 yards, 112 first downs, and catches over 20 yards, 42. You see, he has a background in volleyball and basketball, uses that to get to the high point to catch. And to me, this is an incredibly fluid athlete. This is an athlete that, despite his size, isn't brittle. He can make unbelievable catches. But here's the real kicker. This is a draft where I look at it and I say there's not a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. It's not like last year's draft. I think that you have Travis Hunter as his own entity, basically as a corner and wide receiver. So really, in terms of the just receivers, I think McMillan is the best receiver available in this draft. Now, I have seen a lot of mock drafts having the Jets select Tyler Warren here. And again, I really like Tyler Warren. He's a top 10 prospect in this draft for me. However, I do believe that when I look at the board, that you look at the tight end position, there is a lot of depth. There is a lot of talented players that you could get in round 2 or round 3. It's very difficult to get this type of receiver, especially later. You bring him in, he's automatically a great outside threat. You replace the absence of Davante Adams. You have someone that can be next to Garrett Wilson. And here's the biggest thing, too. Receivers are now kind of becoming the quarterbacks of the National Football League. You want to strategically draft them so you don't have to pay them. If you're going to pay Garrett Wilson, the thing is you don't want to be paying another wide receiver. And with McMillan, you don't have to worry about that for 4 or 5 years. You get a really great number 2, a great complement to Garrett Wilson, someone that does things that he necessarily isn't. He's not the big red zone target. He's not a big chain mover. You get McMillan. I think this is an unbelievable value here at number 7. It's a great pick. And for the Tyler Warren crowd, I get it. I understand the pressure to get a tight end. But this is an incredibly deep tight end class. This is an incredibly deep defensive line class. So even if you had one of the top defensive linemen here, even if you had an unbelievable your pick of all the tight ends, I would say patience. And I know it's difficult. Patience, because I do believe that patience, especially in those two position groups, will be rewarded. Case in point, in the second round, I think the second round pick is a key one for the Jets because they have a lot of versatility. It's a high second round pick. They have a 4. I could see them packaging a 2 and a 4 to get back into the first round. Now, for people trading up for a quarterback, if a guy like a Jackson Dart was there in the 20s or the 30s in round 1, then I would trade up. Outside of quarterback, I don't really see the Jets trading up back into the first round. They certainly could. It's definitely a possibility. Maybe they try to trade back in round 2 to get a couple more picks. But right now, I have them standing pat in the second round. And with their second pick in the draft, I have them going with Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. I told you, patience would be rewarded. Mason Taylor, 6'5", 250 pounds. And look, he was just reliable. Like McMillan, he was just the reliable force in that offense in college. He is, you look at his route running, he is very good to catch the point, makes good natural adjustments, has great hand-eye coordination, can finish in traffic. And in the run game, is he the nastiest run blocker? No. Is he going to win on aggression? No. But the thing I like about him is he's a wall-off blocker. So while he's not a violent people, he's not going to move people off the ball. He does have the athleticism at the point of attack to really seal on the outside and move people, like especially when he's in motion. So to me, he fits what the Jets are looking for, a versatile tight end that can be a factor in the run game, but also a reliable target over the middle of the field. And look, Mason Taylor is a very talented tight end. I think there's a couple of choose your poisons here with the tight end position. I think you look at right now at the top of the second round, there's going to be an abundance of tight ends. And to me, Taylor at the point right now makes the most sense. He seems like the best fit. And right now, with the first 2 picks, the Jets have really done a good job getting a reliable target over the middle in Mason Miller. They've addressed the tight end position. They've addressed the wide receiver position. So now we move into round number 3. Now, again, the Jets have a later third-round pick. They have the Lions' third-round pick after the trades. So this will basically be at the very back end of the third round. And with that, I think this will be a very popular pick where I could see the Jets, full disclosure, trading back and getting extra assets. Now, again, they have a bunch of picks on day 3, but maybe they're able to get a 4th and a 5th or a 4th and a 6th for that late third round pick to move back. So again, I think the second round, I could easily see the Jets moving up or back. Round 3, I doubt they move up, but I could easily see them trading out and getting an extra pick. But you know what? I wanted to stay in round 3 because again, I want this pick. I want to make a pick for you guys. It's only fair. So we've addressed the offensive side. So what position do I have the Jets going with? I have them getting some beef, but the question is the beef on the offensive side or the defensive side? Well, to balance it out, I have them going with Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle out of FSU. Now, he is a 315-pound bulldozer. There's a lot of things I like also about the character. He was a team captain. He's an explosive mover. And again, he can attack the gaps like a bull coming out of a china shop. 4 sacks last year in a year where Florida State was trailing in a lot of games. There weren't a lot of opportunities. The year before had 5 sacks. He's someone that can shoot the gaps, can play the run defense. He's an explosive mover. I really love the athleticism that he has at 315 pounds. In most drafts would probably be a second-round pick, but with such a depth of defensive tackles in this draft, he's going to fall. I think the Jets look at the value here with Farmer is too good. And don't forget, this is someone that also has ties with Jermaine Johnson. I think that would be someone that Jermaine Johnson will push for. And the Jets, I think, want to win with the front 4. They want to get back to having a great defensive line. They will invest in the defensive line. Now, once again, could I see them addressing another spot on the defense? Could this be an offensive tackle? Absolutely, especially with likelihood Morgan Moses isn't back. But I just feel at this point, even though there's such a depth of defensive tackle talent, they're going to look at the values being too good here in the third round, and they get Farmer, a guy who can play the run, is a bit of bigger body than next to Quinnen Williams, and someone that can help not only in the passing game, but in the running game. So that is my first official 3-round mock draft for the New York Jets. So again, to recap, we have them going playmaker, wide receiver, tight end, and of course, defensive tackle. Now, I know let me get to your comments. And I know probably one of the biggest comments will be the elephant in the room, but I definitely will definitely see what we can do. But again, guys, make sure to use that super chat feature to draft the front, get to the front of the line, and make sure that your is Mitch. So a lot of comments here. June, the GM, McMillan looks slow to me in a lot of ways. He's more of a possession receiver. So again, that's why I have him as a good complement to Garrett Wilson. He's not necessarily a burner, but he does a lot of things, especially in the red zone when you need to move the chains, that I do think is very important. Drone says, definitely wouldn't be my pick, but I wouldn't be mad if the Jets went wide receiver. Okay. So I just want to make sure that, and look, I think the wide receiver, this is a really deep tight end group. So Tyler Warner at 7 doesn't make sense, but I do believe that the receiver at 7 could make a lot of sense. Damn, man, laughed my ass off. I don't know about the round 2. Your picks get worse. Okay, well, there's a lot of good tight ends. I think that you're going to look at the tight end position now. I wonder what you would want there, Drones, for that pick. Let's see. All right, Danger Zone. Again, appreciate the support. All right. Dane, of course, on those banker hours right now. Okay. Let's see. I'm definitely going to look at some of these ones too. And again, I'm seeing a lot of back and forth in the comments. Let's also look too at the main elephant in the room that again wasn't really addressed. And again, comment below. Let me know what you guys think, who you would like the Jets to draft, but also make sure to give your thoughts on future videos. And also, if you want to jump to the front of the line, use the super chat feature to make sure that you are definitely seen. The thing I would say is I would be of the mindset that the Jets likely don't draft a quarterback. And now I think the buzz around the Jets and a quarterback will get pushed up. It always does. The quarterbacks always drive the draft narrative. But this really isn't a great quarterback class. Like I said in this mock draft, if you joined us halfway through, I said the only scenario I could see the Jets trading up for a quarterback in the first round would be at the back end. Like, let's say a quarterback's there at 25 or 26. The Jets still like him, think he can be developed, and they want to move up from their second round pick. That is a scenario where I could easily see them moving up to get it. If Jackson Dart is there, I have a feeling Dart's probably going to go in the top 15. Because we've seen the quarterback blitzkrieg that you'll see over the next couple months, especially at the combine. Like I guarantee you, especially with Milroe after the testing, I think Milroe had a terrible Senior Bowl. The measurements were not good, but he's going to put up some physical scores and physical 40 times that are just going to blow your mind. And then everyone's going to be like, hey, got to jump on the hype train. Hey, look at the athleticism that he brings to the table. That's something we don't see at the quarterback position too often. But the thing is he good enough to play the quarterback position? I have a lot of questions about that. This is not a class. Like, if you need a quarterback, this is not a class where you go in excited. This is a class where you kind of tug at your collar and go, I hope it works. I really hope it works. Now, I do see some debate here. Graham in the first round from Michigan. Second, I'd go wide receiver, and third, I'd go quarterback. In Drones, that is a scenario I can go, but here's a reason why I avoid Mason Graham. It's much like Tyler Warren. To me, the defensive tackle position and the tight end position are the two deepest positions in this entire class. You can get maybe not an A- player, but a good BB plus starting caliber player with upside in round 2, round 3, heck, even in round 4. It is that deep of a class for both the tight end position and the defensive tackle position. So because of that, McMillan makes more sense to me in the first round because this is an intriguing wide receiver class. It's not one that I really love. After McMillan, I think there's a major drop-off. This isn't a receiver year. Like, we've seen some really great receiver classes like last year. This is not like last year. So with 7, I would be very wary of taking a tight end or defensive tackle, especially because when you look at the strength of this draft, this is definitely deeper class in terms of the tight ends and the defensive tackles. Now, there are still a lot of talented receivers. There's still some very good, intriguing receivers. A lot of it will, I think, come down to fit. And look, I could see the Jets easily drafting two, maybe even two receivers, two tight ends in this draft. Maybe they draft one early, draft a developmental one on day 3. I could easily see that. I just look at it as I think they're going to try to balance it out. But the other big thing, too, is this is the very initial mock draft. Depending on what happens with free agency, has a major impact. Like, let's say the Jets sign Justin Fields, all of a sudden, maybe they're not looking for a developmental quarterback until day 3, or maybe they were looking end of the first round or day 2, potentially, if they didn't sign Justin Fields. If they go out and they get Slayton, maybe then it helps ease up the wide receiver room. If they go out and get a tight end or 2 in free agency, or they keep Tyler Conklin and they're able to keep 2 or 3 tight ends, maybe they don't target a tight end early. Maybe they look for the back end of day 2, early day 3, potentially. A lot of it's going to depend on the free agency. I do think they're going to add at least one defensive tackle in free agency. Again, we'll see if it's more of a starter or a role player. And based off of that, I think you have to look at this draft and you have to look at the strengths. And the strengths to me are defensive tackle and tight end, which means you can get those between round 2 and 4 and get a starting caliber player. Quarterback, again, is the sexy pick. We all know it's the major talking point. To me, there isn't really a guy that I love in this draft that I'm saying he can be a franchise quarterback right now. There are guys you hope. There are guys that have tools, but there isn't a guy that I'm like, okay, I'm putting everything on him. Like, I see the Jackson Dart sweepstakes, and look, there's a lot I like about Jackson Dart. I think he's got a nice release. He's a better athlete than I think people give him credit for. But am I taking him 7th overall? No, I'm not taking at the 7th pick. If they traded down into the teens and he's there, maybe I'd consider it then. But I just look at this draft class, and I just look at the way that this draft class is built. You have to draft. It's not just about drafting the best player available. It's also about having strategy. If you know that this is an incredibly deep class at 1 or 2 positions, then maybe you stay away from getting an A- player, but you get a good B+ player in a lesser pick and a later pick. And for me, that's how I think you have to attack this if you are the Jets and you are basically looking for a way to build this roster quickly. So Drones brings up a good point. And Tony, thank you for the support again. Give us a like and subscribe for more great content. Those are the 2 quarterbacks I feel have the best potential to be franchise quarterbacks. Ward can be a bit erratic. Again, the problem with Ward is unless the Jets are going to trade up into the first 2 picks, which is going to require a lot more than I'm comfortable, then I don't think you're getting Cam Ward. And Shedeur, the thing with Shedeur is it's not even necessarily him. It's more having the shadow of Dion over him. And look, the Jets just went through this with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I can almost guarantee you, and I've said this on multiple occasions on this show, but I'll give the Spark Notes version. I can just see Dion having a weekly show or bi-weekly show to talk about his son performing. And I just think that is a lot of distraction around the Jets that they don't need. Like, if you were to ask me for the ultimate NFL script writer behind the scenes, I would have him go to the Giants. The Giants struggle. Dion starts whispering in Mara's ear that he can get the most out of his son. He becomes the Giants head coach after the 2025 season, and he goes head-to-head with the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. I that to me is what I feel could happen. But getting back to the Jets, the need of defensive tackle is important, but you also have to look at, too, you have a great player in Quinnen Williams. I do think that Mason Graham is a very good player. And likely, if the Jets took him at 7, I would not disagree that wouldn't be a good pick. But I just look at this draft, and it's like the Tyler Warren. Yes, you get a great player at 7, but you could have still gotten a really good player at the similar position around pick 40. That's how deep those 2 positions are. And I don't think there's that big of a drop-off in terms of between the talent between Mason Graham and some of these defensive tackles. I think he's the best one in this class, but I don't think that there's a massive chasm between him and players 2, 3, and 4 at the position. He's a very good player. He's going to be a very good pro. But I just have this feeling that if it was me right now, McMillan in a receiver class that I don't think is as deep as the tight end defensive tackle position makes more logical sense. And he also is a great complement to what you don't have, because we can talk about the tight end and defensive tackle room, but the Jets don't have wide receivers either. And in this draft, it's easier to find a defensive tackle and tight end later in this draft than finding a number 2 caliber receiver. McMillan comes in, and he's pretty much your number 2 receiver from day one, where you look at, yes, you get Tyler Warren, he's your tight end 1, but then who's your number 2 receiver? You want to have someone out there to help with Garrett Wilson or in case there's an injury. I mean, we were also scenario until Devontae got here, and Devontae's gone, where if Garrett Wilson got hurt, who's our wide receivers? The current wide receiver room, because Alvin Lazard's going to get cut and Devontae Adams is going to get cut, is Xavier Gipson, Malachi Corley, Jason Brownlee. It's not exactly a room where you're like, this is a deep class. This is a great room. But I just look at this and go, okay, McMillan can come in. I can get a starting caliber number 2 receiver at pick 7. I can get a tight end at the top of the second round that will make an impact from day one and be a starter. And I still think the Jets in this mock draft scenario got 3 starters, which is what they need with the first 3 picks. You got a star on the interior defensive line, which is a top 3 need. You got receiver, which I think is a top 3 need. The only position I really didn't address in terms of the top needs are right tackle, which, again, I think the Jets could look at in the top 3 rounds, especially with Morgan Moses likely not coming back. But the other thing I look at, too, is the quarterback position. That is going to be the major outlier. And I'm very curious to see, as we get through this process, who the Jets interview, who the Jets go watch work out, who the Jets invest in. Because I do think they're going to have at least a scout or at least people at certain workouts, at certain events. But which ones are Muji at? Are they going to be more focused on round 1 quarterbacks, guys that might fall to round 2? Are they looking more at the really developmental guys, rounds 2 through 4? I mean, it's also going to come down to how they view Jordan Travis. How do they view him? How do they view his injury recovery? Do they view it as a situation where they want to see him in camp before they go out and invest in a quarterback? Is this a front office that maybe looks at this year as, again, and I know Jet fans don't want to hear about this, as a year where they get all the pieces together and then next year go out in a deeper quarterback class and go and get a quarterback instead of trying to make it work with a quarterback? Because don't forget, too, this is also the first year that they're there. A lot of the scouts that are still in the building were from the previous regime. Now, I talked with Dom C exclusively about this. There probably won't be a lot of turnover until after this scouting circle. And if you're Muji, would you rather take a bet on a quarterback where you haven't really even been in a GM chair and this is your first draft after 3 or 4 months on the job? Or do you want to at least get some time? Do you want to get a Band-Aid like a Justin Fields? Do you want to get something like that buys you a little bit of time and allows you to really all next season evaluate the quarterbacks yourself? I'm not saying that Muji wasn't evaluating the quarterbacks, but don't forget too, where did Muji come from? He came from Denver. What did they do? They drafted a rookie quarterback last year. So you can't tell me that they were really in the scouting world for the Denver Broncos. I'm pretty sure quarterback wasn't really one of the priorities that they were looking at in the process. Now, maybe they were looking at a lot of defensive tackles, wide receivers, and pieces around the quarterback. That could help. But when you look at the quarterback position, it's clear that the Giants have been looking. The Giants have sent Brian Dable to certain things. They've been sending Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen attended games in person. They have done their homework because they know they need to get a quarterback in this draft. The big thing I look at is if Muji isn't comfortable with a quarterback or taking a quarterback, I'd rather have him defer and be sold on a quarterback than just draft a quarterback just to draft a quarterback. And look, could Jackson Dart be someone? Because I know the Spielman rumors are pushing. And look, I do love the debates in the chats right now. Look, if you're a 6'5" receiver and you run a 4.6, that is still an effective wide receiver. The big thing with McMillan's game is going up and attacking the high point of the ball, being a jump ball guy, and being possession receiver. I'm not asking him to break off a 50-yarder, but if it's 3rd and 7 and I throw an out route to the sideline, is he going to convert? If I need a tough gainer over the middle on a 3rd and 4, is he going to be a guy I look to give the football to in the red zone? If I see him on a mismatch on a 5'11", 5'10" corner and I have him out wide, is he going to be a jump ball target? Like, that is how you can use McMillan efficiently. And I think it also gives you a different type of weapon and gives you a different type of receiver that the Jets haven't really had. The Jets don't really have a lot of size in the wide receiver room. They really haven't since Corey Davis. I mean, they've had a lot of guys who are smaller wide receivers, more agile in space, have a bit of a burner to them, but they don't necessarily have the guy that can be a big body target and move the chains. I mean, again, I'm not saying McMillan is the sexiest player in terms of what he can do to stretch the field, but I just look at what he can do. I mean, he brings a tetanus shot to this offense. He brings them a weapon that they don't have. And with the 2 picks I have them in this draft, the Jets get 2 6'5" players, one in the middle, one on the outside. It creates different mismatches at different levels of the defense. Garrett Wilson is this team's deep threat. They need to incorporate him more as a deep threat. He can also control the game at all 3 stages. McMillan, to me, is more of a not necessarily a plus 20-yard guy, but within 20 yards. If you need a short play or if you need an intermediate play, it is a very good option to have. And McMillan, again, here's the biggest reason I really love the kid. We're talking a lot, and I see a lot of measurables. Well, guess what? Joe Douglas did a lot of measurables. He did a lot of the RAS scores. You looked at the Jets' RAS scores over the past couple of years. How many guys did they get that were the biggest at their position, quote, the strongest, the fastest? So they had all these great athletic scores. But there were times where the question then became, okay, they have all these physical gifts, but are they productive football players? And McMillan, you look at it, is a productive football player. Like, we're not just talking about a player that had a flash in the pan. The last 2 years, he's led the FBS in receiving yards, first downs, catches of 20-plus yards. You look at what he's done, he has been incredibly productive. The Jets have had a problem getting productive players on this team. Allen Lazard is a physically gifted player. He was not a productive player. He did not have production to him. Both the guys I have brought in the first 2 rounds at the tight end and the wide receiver position, are they the sexiest? Are they going to run the fastest 40s? Probably not. But they are guys that have produced and have been consistent, and they have been the go-to guys on their team. When Arizona needed a play, when they needed a conversion, he is who they went to. When you looked at Taylor for LSU, when they needed a first down, when they needed a key play, he is who they went to. And there are a lot of guys, like, we've seen it. I mean, Zach Kuntz is a great example. The size, 99 percentile, the weight, 99 percentile, the running at that size, 97 percentile, all these great RAS scores. But at the end of the day, was he a productive college football player? And you've seen it now. Again, he was a 7th-round pick, but you look at a lot of guys that the Jets have drafted, and it almost was like, if whoever had the highest RAS score on the board was probably going to be the guy that was going to be selected. And I agree with J Max. They need a starter. And look, I think it's a little early for tackle at 7 for the Jets. And like I'm saying, I wouldn't hate Warren or Graham there. And this is the thing we get into with these debates. And again, I love these debates, but it feels like if I say that, this is why I don't want Tyler Warren, like, oh, you hate Tyler Warren as a prospect. No, if the Jets take him, I wouldn't hate it. I just look at the strength of this draft is the tight end defensive tackle position. If I can get a starter in round 2, why am I not wasting, but why am I utilizing my first round pick on a tight end if I feel comfortable? I mean, everyone keeps bringing up how the Jets need to find their Sam Laporta. They need to find their dynamic tight end. Well, guess what? Sam Laporta was a second-round pick. George Kittle was a third-round pick. You look at the tight end positions, you can find really good tight ends on day 2 of the draft. And especially in a draft like this one, there's a lot of really, really good depth in this draft in terms of the tight end position. And a lot of it also it comes down to what you're really looking for. It comes down to like, what flavor are you looking for? A tight end that's more of an inline blocker? Are you looking for more of a wide receiver tight end? There are a lot of very, very, very good tight ends in this draft. And there's a lot of depth. Like, I like Colston Loveland. I don't think he'd be available around 2, but he's very productive in Michigan. Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo is someone that I could see being there in round 2. Now, again, Arroyo was a very dynamic. I think he's going to test incredibly well. But to me, he's a bit more of a pass catcher than maybe an inline blocker. But then you have interesting guys like Gunnar Helm from Texas, who I thought was highly productive. I mean, if you don't mind a little bit of a size discrepancy, Terrence Ferguson from Oregon in round 4. He's someone that's 6'5", 245. Now, again, one guy I'm curious to see how he's going to be evaluated is Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Again, reportedly around 238 pounds. That to me is a bit small. I'm curious to see if he's been basically eating a bunch of PB&Js and trying to, put on some weights or going to the all-you-can-eat buffet to jack up the weight a little bit. But there is a lot of really good tight ends and guys that I can see starting late. And that's not even the defensive tackle room. I mean, you look, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan is someone who, again, great name, by the way, Tyleik Williams, Alfred Collins, Shamar Turner, TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander, Jordan Phillips, Deion Walker. I mean, there's a lot of really good defensive tackles that you can get in this draft. And here's the thing with why I also think you have to look at drafting the defensive tackles later. We see this all the time, especially in the draft. In the first 2 rounds, there's such an emphasis on offense that you're going to see tackles go. You're going to see running backs go. You're going to see receivers go. You're going to see tight ends go, quarterbacks. That pushes some really good defensive players that probably should have been second-round picks into the 3rd and 4th round. We see it all the time. And you can find valuable pieces later in the draft, especially with this depth, because there's going to be teams that are going to be like, we need a receiver. We need to get a running back. We need to get a left guard. We need to get a right tackle. And right now, if you look at the Jets, I just look at the depth. You can see the Jets addressing in the first 3 rounds the tight end, the defensive tackle, and the wide receiver position. But I also think they're going to add a veteran tight end in free agency. And who knows? Maybe they'll add an extra tight end on day 3. This is such a deep class that I could see them saying, you know what? We'll take a guy who we think could be a starter, but we'll also take a dart throw on day 3. Maybe a guy that had an injury last year who we have great tape from the year before. Maybe we think he can be developed. Maybe there's someone that's more of a role player. Maybe we get more of a receiving tight end earlier, but we'll get a good rock grader as a tight end later that can move people off the ball. It is just such an incredibly deep defensive tackle draft that, I just basically ran through like 7 or 8 names of really good defensive tackles. That's not even the defensive ends or the edges in this draft too. There's some also really good edges in this draft. I mean, these are guys that also I could see hovering around day 3 because the team needs a receiver, because the team needs a quarterback, because the team needs another position. I mean, there's also a lot of pretty good running backs I think are going to push the board down to in round 2. There's so many talented players in this draft, especially this to me reminds me a lot of the 2023 draft. I think that there are really 7 really blue chip players in the draft, maybe 8. And then after that, there's a lot of very good players, but it's more late first round type of grades. But then you also have a lot of guys that in round 2 or 3 are still going to have a pretty high grade. I don't think there's a massive drop off between the end of the first round and the middle of the third round. That's how deep and talented this draft is. Now, again, when I say talent, I'm not saying upper echelon talent potentially, but there is a lot of really good football players. And it reminds me of 2023. Once we got past Broderick Jones and Will McDonald, there was kind of a drop off, but then it was a good talent level for basically the next 40, 50 picks. Now, I also could definitely see with this Jet team is definitely getting a little creative. I think that they would get a little creative. And now here's another one too. J Max brings this up. I don't know. Number one, you're not getting a first round for Breece Hall. Number two, why are you trading a known commodity for, a lottery ticket in this draft for a running back? If a team gave you a first round pick, I would consider it. But the thing is why I don't think it's going to work, J-Max, is because the Lions were a run-heavy team. I think the Jets are going to want to run the ball, and then run the ball even more. So why are you giving up a talented running back like that? So show love and click like, my friends. Again, thank you, June the GM. Always appreciate it. But look, I don't see them trading Breece unless it's an offer that you basically look as a fan, you go, yeah. Look, it is the last year of the contract for Breece Hall. I think the problem with that, the thing with running backs is you still have the franchise tag. Super chat, baby, cutting the line is Scott Foster. Casey missed it, trades down, collects second, third, and fourth. Here's my thing, Scott. I am of the opinion, if you're going to trade draft assets, I almost would rather have picks in next year's draft. It's a deeper draft and it's a deep quarterback draft, and you want those assets next year in case you want to move up. Now, if I'm in this year's draft, if I'm trading out of 7, I want a future first next year, or I'm trying to get a future second out of it so that I have those assets to basically go up and trade. Now, I'm of the opinion, too, with Breece Hall, I don't think they're going to trade him. I think you want to try to franchise tag him more. But I do think the second round could be intriguing to get an early third and maybe a future pick as well. Like I was saying, Scott, the third round pick, I could easily see the Jets trading out of because, again, they have the late third round pick. It's almost a fourth rounder. So maybe they could turn that into a 4 and a 6. But again, guys, we have plenty more of great content coming your way. This is just our first of many mock drafts. Let me know if you want this to happen every 2 weeks on Mock Draft Monday. Let me know in the comments below. If you're joining us after the video and you have your own comments and thoughts on the video, make sure to comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the picks and who are some prospects that you have an eye on, maybe even some day 3 guys that you think could be good fits for the Jets. But if you're new to the channel, and again, so you don't miss any of our latest content, hit the like, hit the subscribe so you don't miss our latest videos. We'll have a lot more videos coming later this week. We can talk about future trades potentially. I'll be putting up a poll later on the community page. So make sure you keep an eye on it because I'm going to ask you what video you guys would want. So again, with Rich Sports Talk, you guys get a major say in the program. But until next time, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk on the first of many Mock Draft Mondays.